Hey, good morning. This is Golf with I3 Lending. I'm here with Jenny with Insure Title.
Yes, hi, I'm Jenny Restrepo with Insure Title Agency, and I think today I'm here to talk title basics.
Awesome. Yeah, these are some of the topics that we want to cover because there's a lot of first-time home buyer. It's going to be buying this buying season. We want to educate you as a home buyer what you can shop for, what to look for, what our fees are, what we consider junk fees, and how we can, maybe minimize the cost for that first-time home buyer so we can save that money to pass it down on your new home.
Absolutely. I'll kick it off with saying the number one misconception or misunderstanding in the home buying process, especially with first-time home buyers, is the difference between your down payment and your closing costs. So your down payment is actually the money that you're putting down on the home as part of whatever loan you've been approved with. Your closing costs are the settlement fees required to finish that process and transfer ownership from the seller to the buyer. And those are different things. So for example, if you have down payment assistance or if you're going with a VA loan where you have zero down payment, there are still going to be closing costs. And in many of those items, they are required by whatever is the municipality where you're purchasing the home. So it's not up to the lender, it's not up to the title company, it's not up to your realtor what they are. They are legally required fees.
Awesome. Okay. Can you break down more into the fees when they're shopping for those fees, what to look out for?
Absolutely. Number one, when you get your good faith estimate, you're going to see services you can shop for. Every single third-party person that's related to this transaction, just like you chose your realtor and you chose your lender, you can choose your title company, your inspector. The only one you can't choose is your appraiser.
Correct.
That's a long story. But you can choose. So you can choose the title company and you have a right, even if, let's say, the seller wants to choose a title company, you as a buyer can say, no, thank you. I would like to choose the title company. It's my purchase. And essentially, if there's any mistakes, I'm inheriting those going forward. Mm-hmm. That is a choice. But you can ask questions. I would like to see an estimate of the closing costs. I would like to know what you charge as a settlement fee. So when you're dealing with a title company, one of the only fees that they get to choose is the settlement fee. And that's what they charge for their services, which includes not just doing all of the paperwork, but making sure that everything is done correctly, doing all the research with the seller to ensure that you have, number one, the correct seller, all of the people who need to sign, because sometimes it's not just one, and making sure that it's done correctly and legally so that when that deed ownership is transferred from seller to buyer, that it's done correct, it's executed, it's recorded with the county, and that the home that you believe that you're buying actually becomes yours on day of closing. That's the most important part because sometimes, unfortunately, a lot of fraud is happening in Florida. So you want to make sure that you are buying from the correct person and all of the people who need to sign are signing. That's super important. Now, along with your buying closing costs, you'll have a settlement fee. You're going to have an owner's policy, which may or may not be paid by the buyer or the seller. It depends on your contract. The owner's policy is your insurance that the title is done correctly, and should anyone challenge the title, you have insurance. If you have a lender, there will also be a lender's policy. And then there are going to be transfer taxes on the deed that's charged by the county. That's typically on the seller side. And then if there's a homeowners association, some may be seller, some may be buyer. You've got property taxes, which again is a legal item. It is dealt with by whatever day you're buying. The seller owns every single day of the calendar year, including the day of closing. So they will figure out how much does the seller owe and collect that upfront from the seller, so that when your taxes are due, because they're due in arrears, meaning at the end of the year, that money was collected on behalf of the seller, because we all know once the seller gets his or her check, they're out. And so we don't go back and say, oh, by the way, did you want to pay those taxes? No, it's all collected up front. And then if there are any other bills due against this property, if the seller, unfortunately, has any liens or judgments, or we've seen them all, IRS liens, back child support, anything that the seller owes that attaches to the property must be settled up by the seller prior to closing. Mm-hmm. And that way you buyer receive the home free and clear with no clouds on the title. Those are all the terms that kind of come along with that. But essentially, you receive the house. Not only is it clean on the inside, they wash the floors and the countertops, but the deed is clean. The title is clean, so that you're walking into this home with everything that you expected, all of the ownership rights, and no problems inherited by the prior owner.
Awesome. What about, you touched a lot on a purchasing and buying side. So I heard that, on a refinance, you mentioned too about the owner's policy. What are some ways maybe a client can save some money using their owner's policy?
Certainly. If you have an owner's policy, or let's say so you're the owner, you want to do a refinance.
Yes.
You can get what we call a reissue credit. You simply need to provide a copy of your current owner's policy to the title company that's processing your refinance, and you will receive a reissue credit. Not everybody tells you that, but you are entitled to it. And on a refinance, there is no time limit for that. On the resale of a property within 3 years, there will be a credit of a reissue credit on that owner's policy. So it has to be within 3 years. And again, if you are the buyer and you've agreed to pay for the owner's policy, then you can receive that reissue credit. You simply need to request a copy of the current owner's policy from the seller. And here's my little tidbit. It's in the contract that it says the seller should provide it to you should they have a copy of it in the contract.
Awesome. And lastly, I want to cover, I get this question a lot from the mortgage side on a refinance. Are survey required on a refinance?
It depends. If there's been any new structures added, then sometimes it will be required by the lender.
Yes.
So one thing is the title company has no requirements for things like that. We have no dog in the fight. We are simply following the policy of the other parties involved. If the lender requires a whole new survey because there's been a new structure, then we as title can't override that decision. But sometimes there is a way to do a little bit of a workaround. It just depends. If you purchase the home and then you put in a detached garage, a pool, a fence, right, then it may be required. And here's why I want to tell you that you may not want to override this decision. Because if any part of any of these structures impede on your neighbor's property lines, this could pose a larger problem to you in the future, especially if your neighbor's property sells. That's when we usually see the most of the problems is that, okay, you built this garage, but you're encroaching now on your neighbor's property line. Those people didn't seem to care, but guess what? New neighbors care because they want to build something and now they can't because you did. So a survey is warranted in many situations, but if it's just something small, our team has been able to kind of work around it and negotiate it a little bit where we're still meeting the requirement, but you don't have to pay for a full-on brand new all the way survey.
Oh, awesome.
So if that's you, come see us. We'll do your refinance and we'll work within the rules, obviously, but do our best to make sure that we're not putting any extra fees on there when we, through our experience and the knowledge of our team, know that there are some workarounds. A lot of times when you get the answer of no, and I see this all the time with title companies and with lenders, not i3 obviously, but other less experienced lenders, is when you get a no, a lot of times it's no, I can't do that, but it's not no, it can't be done.
Right.
And I highly encourage you, shop your refinances or talk to someone who has amazing reviews like Golf and his team, because I've seen this happen so many times where people are told, oh, you can't get approved for a loan. Oh, we can't do your refinance. It can't be done because of this. No, you can't do it. It's not that it can't be done. So sometimes no is no. But in this situation, shop it around. Don't just take one professional person's answer, because each lending institution has their own parameters and guidelines of the products that they offer and the things that they can and cannot do. And some are more restricted than others.
Right. I agree with that, Jenny's statement about you shopping around, right? Because sometimes what I get is a lot of referrals, but also too is like, research your who's going to be working for you, right? For myself, we have this thing called NMLS, which is my license with the state. And then you can go check that person's history, who they've been working for, how long they've been in business, because you are trusting someone, with one of your biggest investment in your life, right? And then a lot of time clients will come to me, my lease is ending in, 45 days, 60 days, we got to be in a place in this short period of time. So, I mean, some companies, like bigger, to me, is not better because they do not care of you individually versus myself. I have a vested interest in my reputation, and to make sure that we are delivering that service and product that if you need to be in this new home by 60 days, we're going to set you the proper expectation to make sure that you are what I call mortgage ready. So
I agree with that. Listen, at this point in 2024, you can look up basically anything that you want to know at the touch of your fingertips. So go to Google, look up the reviews, look up whether this person's license is active, if they've ever had any complaints against their license. All of these things are research that you can do, because I agree with Gulf. We're talking hundreds of thousands of dollars. And I think you can tell, like, I'm cheap. I'm not trying to waste my money on anything. That's a huge purchase. So you do want to make sure that your investment is protected. You're not going out and investing $100,000 in some stock just because your bestie told you to, right?
Correct.
Hopefully not. You're doing, unless your bestie is super smart and works for an investment firm. But most of the time, if you're looking at that much money, you're doing your research.
Yeah,
even people who do sports betting, look at all the stats and all the numbers and all of the things before they make their bets. And your home not only is an investment, but it's a place to live. It's a place where you're making memories and potentially growing a family. And so, of course, you don't want to just trust anyone with that decision and with that much money. And so when you can look up and do your research and make sure that who you're dealing with is reputable and has been in business for a while and knows what they're talking about, do that due diligence.
Awesome. Well, Jenny, I appreciate you coming today and giving us the title basic. Please feel free to reach out to Jenny for title service, or myself, Gulf at i3 Lending. And Jenny, where can people find you Insured?
Certainly. So they can find us on all the socials at Insured Title Agency, or go to our website, which is insuredwithani-title.com. Or listen, if you don't want all that technology stuff, and just give us a call, 813-855-3585.
Awesome. Thank you.
Thanks for having me.